Horrible thought.
Oh God, what?
I think I forgot to get ready before we started filming.
I
How could I forget to do my face?
expect this sloppiness from me, but you. Hello, I'm Sister Babeushka.
I look like a little babushka with your...
Little cardigan keeping me warm in Russia.
And I'm Sister Alaska Lot.
And this is Utter Nunsense.
This is the show where we pour ourselves a cup of tea.
And utter whatever nonsense pops into our heads.
This is basically a laid-back chat between friends.
And a new episode is uploaded each month, once a month, at the start of the month, both on YouTube and as a podcast.
So remember to like and subscribe so you get notified of new episodes. And if you enjoy it, please do leave us a comment as well, because it helps the algorithm and gets more people to see it, and they get to enjoy some nonsense with you too.
Booyah.
We know that people are very interested in sister makeup. And so we thought something that would be fun would be where we do some videos learning how to do other people's makeup. And we're going to start with each other.
We could do half a face each, like Harvey Dent from Batman.
I never considered that possibility. We're going for the easy option of one sister is going to teach the other how to do their face, or at least the kind of key elements that make their face.
This can only go well. There is no way this will go wrong at all.
There will be a second video where we do it flipped the other way around as well. So we each get a go. But today it's my turn. I get to try and show Babeushka how to do the Sister Alaska face. It looks just like that.
This is going to be a fun learning curve for me.
What I'm aiming to do today is a basics version of Alaska. So looking at the key techniques that go into it, and showing you what I would consider the bare minimum. And then what you do after that is up to you.
I am very excited to see how long this will take me. I'm expecting 3 hours of joy.
Surely every minute spent with me is a joy. So when I do my face, I think of it in 3 different stages. And how many stages you do just depends on how much time you have and how much time you're willing to put into it. If I've got spare time, or I think I've got spare time, I will keep going and keep adding things just because I can.
More is more.
I mean, as a sister, that is the rule, surely. More is more is more. If we ignore the white base that we do, because I don't think that's essential, you can choose to do the white or not. The 3 key stages for me are color, details, and extra fancy bits. The first one is the most essential. The second one, I personally wouldn't want to go out without. The third one is just having fun and adding extra bits and pieces. And the color and the detail that goes over the top of it are what make up the Sister Alaska face.
Gotcha.
Unlike most other sisters, I tend not to use much traditional makeup. I use more water-activated face paint. That bit is really key because there are other types of face paint. How you put them on and how you get them off is different. So, for example, don't go for an oil-based face paint. They don't come off with water. You need a specialist product. They will be stuck on your face unless you have the specialist product. We're going for water-activated face paints because they're easy to put on and easy to take off. And don't use non-face paint on your face is the other thing. Like, just make sure it's suitable for your face, people. I like to use split cakes. These are sets of water-activated face paints that have multiple colors in the one pot, essentially, which means you can get some really nice effects that look fancier than they really are. There are 3 different ways that I will use this. The first way is you can use a brush, and you can take the brush across it and then draw shapes on your face. We're not doing that today, though. The other method is you can use a sponge. There are 2 different sponges that I use. The one that we're using today is a teardrop shape. This one's been well used, it's stained. I will also use one that's like a half circle, again, well used. And these have two different purposes for me. So the teardrop one is a really nice shape in your eye. So essentially you can do something that looks like very clever eyeshadow with just a quick dab. The half circle one is bigger, so I will use it for big patterns that come out beyond the shape of my eye. We're not doing the half circle today, we are doing teardrop. So that is all of our colour with the teardrop. These sponges started in the same colour, by the way.
As you can see, my one looks quite new.
So before I get started, I'm just going to explain what I'm doing. So with this shape, you put the pointy end at your inner crease, and then the outside kind of goes where your eyebrow is. And so you can give yourself what looks like eyeshadow without eyeshadow. So you don't have to spend hours blending or anything like that, because it's all in the one pot. When you're using the teardrop one, it's really good to have a pot where the colours go from lightest to darkest. And the lightest colour is going to go in the inner corner, darkest colour is at the outer corner.
I think I'm going to watch you do it first, just so I can see it in action before I start copying.
That's fair enough. So I get my whole sponge wet, but then I squeeze out as much of the water as I can. If it's too wet, the colours will run too much and it just becomes a muddy mess.
Oh, my.
And then I just put it with the pointy end at the light colour and the fat end at the dark colour. Just rubbing it side to side so it picks up the colour.
Okay. Sponge is loaded.
The nice thing about your sponge is it's squeezable and moldable. So if you find that you need to kind of curve it a bit, you can just stick your thumb in the middle and kind of curve it round. If the fat end is too fat, you can just squeeze it down a bit. So you can manipulate it to fit your own face.
And it's just, is it a dabbing?
So I just dab it.
Just dab it on, okay.
And I allow it to move around slightly as I dab, but not too much. Moving around slightly actually helps with the blending. And essentially I'm just dabbing until I feel I've got a nice coverage.
Let's see what I can do.
I wouldn't worry about if you get any teeny wee messy bits, like if it goes slightly down below your eye. I wouldn't worry about it because all that, no one's going to notice once you've done all the fancy bits anyway.
Oh, I'm dabbing. Oh, wow. Oh,
very quickly, you get something that looks really cool.
very fancy.
People see it and they go, oh, your blending is spectacular. How have you done it? Well, in about 5 seconds. I've done my first eye, so I'm going to go in and reload my sponge for the second eye.
And I don't need to re-wet it. I just need to go in for more colour, yeah?
I re-wet mine. It's probably overkill, but I soak the whole thing, get all the paint off, and then start over.
And so do I swap the side of the brush I'm using so that, well, the sponge, so that way I can do it the same sort of gradient the other way?
Because mine, the pointy end is all the light colour and the fat end is all the dark colour, then I'm just loading the same both times.
Okay, yes.
We've got a few different companies. I've got possibly 2 favourites that I quite like. So Diamond FX is the one that I'm using today.
The one I am using too.
I quite like them because theirs often have a bit of a kind of sheen to them. There's something slightly pearlescent or metallic about them, which it looks quite nice in person. I don't know if it comes across on camera. And the other one is Tag. They're quite good as well. Something that I haven't mentioned actually is eyebrows. And it's maybe worth just saying that I know a lot of sisters, a lot of drag performers as well, often cover their eyebrows. They'll do the glue and the makeup covering it technique. Sister Alaska does not cover eyebrows. It just takes up too much time. I'd rather spend that time on doing fancy things. Okay, so we have some eyeshadow going. And if you look carefully at mine, you'll see that it's not perfectly tidy. We don't care. It's going to get covered up anyway. It doesn't matter. As I said, I don't cover my brows. So a lot of other sisters, the forehead space, it becomes retail for over-the-top brows and eye makeup that goes all the way up to them. I reserve that space for doing other things. So we're going to do a design in the center of our foreheads. And we're going to start again by putting on colour. Colour is the basis for everything. And then we put our design over the top. So again, I'm soaking my whole sponge and then squeezing it really well to get all the water out.
Wait, so are you applying the paint and then squeezing it to get any excess water? Or are you squeezing
No.
it then putting it on?
Clean water, clean sponge. I'm soaking the whole thing so it's
Yeah.
completely wet. And then I'm squeezing out as much of the water as I can. I've got a damp sponge. We're going to load it with the paint again, but this time I'm going to flip it the other way. So the pointy bit goes at the dark color and the fat bit goes at the light color.
And this time I know what we're doing.
This way around.
So fat in the light, pointy in the dark.
And then
Right.
just side to side to load it up.
Like this. Ooh.
Nice. So we're going to flip it around. So the pointy bit is going to go at the top of our forehead. Now, you've got your head panties on. You can decide where you think it should go. I tend to put the pointy bit where my hairline is, and the bottom end will come down most of my forehead. If I turn it around the other way, I'm going to swivel it round to create a semicircle of colour. You're not dragging, you are just dabbing.
Dab, don't drag. Get with the kids and dab.
And if you feel that one bit's looking not quite as symmetrical, you can just dab over it and things will just kind of come together.
Dip, 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 dip.
At this stage, it doesn't look like anything spectacular, but what you're doing is just laying a base for what you're going to put over the top.
Maybe this would have been easier without head panties. I can see what you mean now when you said why you don't put on your head panties.
Yeah. And I'm aware that once I do put on my head panties, part of this is going to be covered. And then the details, which is step 2, that we're going to paint on, I take into account what might be cut off when I put on the head panties. So we now have some eyeshadow going on. And we have a blob of colour in our middle of our forehead, essentially. That's probably the main bit of the basics, the step 1. The only other things that I would consider absolutely essential would be nose and lips. For some reason, I come back to them later normally, but I'm easy either way.
We'll just continue as if it was your time doing drag.
Alrighty, in which case I'm going to put my split cake to the side temporarily. So now we are going to get out some black.
It's my summer.
It is still water activated face paint. Please do not use things on your face that are not meant for your face. This is Snazaroo. There you go, that might read better. And I use this for all the detailing. I use this for eyeliner. I don't use real eyeliner. It's all face paints.
Giving away your trade secrets now.
I am quite particular when it comes to brushes. And Sister Babeushka has already gone and acquired a particular set of brushes. Now, these don't have to be expensive. These are Snazaroo. Snazaroo do like a pack of 3 get started with face painting brushes. Those 3 are everything you need to get started. My favorite one is the round brush, the fatter round brush. So you've got a skinny one and you've got a fat one. And it's the fat one that we're going to use for almost everything.
Okay.
Round brushes like this are quite nice with a point on the end because you can do a combination of things that are skinny, fat. You can do dots, teardrops, like really versatile. So we are going to start with just doing some eyeliner. I have hooded eyes. So if I'm not careful, if I do really big eyeliner, when I open my eyes, it starts to smudge everywhere and it looks awful. So I need to do my eyeliner to account for that. So we're going to start with doing some not very big and impressive looking eyeliner. Starting with the inner corner, I do it quite thin until I get about halfway along the lash line.
Wee!
It's not big, it's not fancy yet. So I've gone halfway along, and then from that midway point towards the outer corner of my eye, I go pretty much straight across.
Oh, I went too far.
It's okay, we are going to go further out.
Oh, good.
I just haven't gone there yet. So I've only gone as far as the outer corner of the eye, but we're about to go further because we want a great big wing.
Okay, you said just because you went straight, I was like, yeah, I'll just go straight on, it's fine.
From there, we are going to create a wing. And I tend to use my eyes as the guideline for where that should go. You imagine the curve of the bottom lid. I want to continue it as if it was part of that.
Okay.
And I take it out until just beyond the colour that we've added with the sponge.
Okay.
And I always do this kind of as my basic shape. And then if I want to go bigger, I can. But this can also be a good kind of stopping point, is going out just beyond that colour. Anyone who's seen my faces will know that quite often it does go bigger. So at the moment, I've just got one quite skinny looking line, but from the end of that line to the very end, right where it's at my kind of at my eyebrow, I'm going to take that back straight across as if I was aiming for the center of my eyelid when it's open. I'm not going to go as far as the eyelids though. I'm going to take it until my eyelid starts, where that crease starts. Because I've got hooded eyes. Do you want me to do it first and you can see what I mean?
Yes, please.
Looking at where the center of my eyelid is, how high up that is, I want to take a line out like this, and I'm going to make sure they join up. It's always a good thing. So I've not gone onto the eyelid yet.
Okay.
And then I'm going to fill in just that bit of the wing. So I'm going to join those two corners up around the outside of my eyelid. So I'm still not going onto my eyelid, but essentially I'm making a triangle. And then I fill in the triangle.
Fill in the triangle. Oh, God.
And I don't worry too much about any, like if I make any small mistakes, because you can always go bigger and just cover it with more black.
Bigger? What are you talking about? Mine's is as dainty as ever. I feel like I could take off on this wing now.
We're sisters. We can have wings as big as we like.
Ain't nobody going to tell us the size of our wings too big.
I want my wing to be fat. Like a fat ass, fat wing. So what we have just now is some rather more dainty liner on our lid. And then we have a great big triangle stuck on the side. I will kind of take the very top of the liner and I will swoop it around to make more of a curve to meet with the actual liner on the lid. So let me do it and show you. So I've got this top line that you can see here.
Yeah.
Swoop it round.
Okay.
Meet the rest. Because hooded eyes. It swoops around it and avoids the entire problem. My wings end up as daggers rather than wings.
Feeling a bit threatened now that you're bringing out the daggers.
Well, I don't do false nails, so I have to have some daggers and claws somewhere, don't I? So are we going to the other eye and repeating the process?
These wings are not going to match. I know that now.
It's okay to go back to the first wing and amend it to match the second one. Now, here's an interesting thing. A lot of people are going to go to their weak eye and do this. I don't. So instead of trying to use the same hand for both, I will switch hands. I feel like with practice, I get a better result. It does take practice though, so feel free to do what you're more comfortable with today.
I'm here for the full Alaska experience.
It's also worth mentioning that I am mixed-handed. So I'm not fully ambidextrous, but I do use different hands for different things.
I am totally reliant on one hand, so this will be fun.
There is a sneaky thing that you can do to make them more equal, which I probably should have mentioned earlier.
Wow.
If you're really, really struggling with getting them to be equal, do the weak side first, because you'll find it easier to do the same thing with your strong sides.
Oh, fuck. I can't laugh when I'm doing this.
Serious faces! Serious faces!
I feel like I'm preparing to become a Disney villain with this.
Eyeliner is one of those things that is tricky, but I wouldn't go without it now. I think there are some elements that make a look more complete, and lining your eyes is one of them. I do not ever line under my eyes, only the top, to keep me looking youthful and glamorous.
Very nice. Not so even for me.
Remember that no one else is going to see your face as close up as you. Well, it's unlikely. But now we've got more to do with the eyes. You'll be so pleased to hear. We're now going to add some pretend lashes coming around the bottom of the eye. So it doesn't go right up to the eye. I don't line under my eye either because I have really bad bags and it makes me look old. So I'm going to leave the bag alone and I'm going to do some fake lashes under the bag.
Stop calling me a bag.
You're not a bag, you're a boot.
How dare you speak to Babeushka like that? No beet soup for you.
They're basically just teardrops. Our trusty round pointed brush that we had is the brush that's going to do this for us. We have 3 different methods, 3 different levels of difficulty. I'm going to show you them all, but feel free to pick the easiest one.
Basically, you're saying it's not for me.
Difficulty level 1 is the easiest one, and that is creating essentially a petal shape. With this brush, the pointy end, just place it very gently on the skin, and then you just press the brush down to get a teardrop shape. The more you press, the bigger the teardrop will be. So a little press will get you a smaller teardrop. Just as a wee side note, this method is something you can do to create flower shapes as well. Do a quick press, 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 and make like a little flower. If you've not done teardrops before, I would recommend sticking with that one.
Know your place, Babeushka. Okay.
I will talk about the 2 other methods though, for future reference or for anyone who's feeling adventurous. Method 2 is building on the first method that we used. We're still using the point and pressing down, but as we press down, we're going to pull it to make it longer.
Pull press.
These are quite good because with this method, you can then shape them more. So for example, you could pull it in a curve and get a curvy one. And then level 3, it requires the most practice, level 3. I'm not going to lie. I spent many hours sitting in front of the telly, doodling on my arm. This one requires a slightly different technique. So you need more paint, much more paint. So you want your paint to have enough that it's actually pooled in the palette there.
Mm-hmm.
And for this one, we want to dip the end of the brush into that pool of paint. So we've got a lot right on the very tip and it's quite watery and wet. And with this, we're going to go the opposite way. We're actually going to press harder with the point and we're going to stay on the point, but we're going to pull and lift. Once you've got the hang of it, I feel is the one that gives you the most flexibility with what you're doing. That's the methods that I go for now, but it has come after quite a lot of practice. The interesting thing about level 3 is that there's something else you can do, which we're going to come to in a wee bit. By having that really wet paint right on the end of your brush, you can also do nice dots. And we are going to use dots today, but we're going to come to that later. Right, so let me do the first teardrop. And I'm going to go with method 3, just to let you know. I'm going to put the end of it, the fat end, just underneath where the end of my wing is. And I'm going to bring it in to close to the corner of my eye. The 2 bits should not meet. So I want it to be separate and distinct. So I'm going to take it from about here. Bring it into about here.
So for tip 1, instead of going out toward and then in towards the eye, I'd go close and then out towards the back of my head.
So you'd put the point of the brush in the outer corner of your eye and then press out the way. Technique 3 is the only one that goes the other way around.
Right. God, I wish my wings weren't so big now. We're going for a chunky style today.
So I do a minimum of 3. And the first 3 are fairly similar in size, but as I go down, each one will get slightly shorter than the last one. So my second one, I'll bring it in just slightly, but still bringing the point in towards the outer corner of the eye.
Okay.
And then as a bare minimum, there's a third one.
It's a magic number. Cool. I have 3.
I rarely stop at 3. Quite often I will then continue, but I'll make them much smaller each time to kind of fade it out underneath my eyes. There we are. So I just make them, and I've just added another 3 to be honest. Made them smaller each time. That's one eye done. We now need to do it on the other eye.
Are you swapping hands again?
I am swapping hands again.
Right then. Well, yep, definitely stronger with one hand than the other.
They're never even. I do at least try to give the same number on both sides, and that way there's still some kind of symmetry.
I have managed the number, but not the symmetry.
So we have our fake lashes. So that I would say is the basic Alaska eye. Remember, we had the 3 stages of color, details, and extra fancy bits. So if you want to, you can then go on and do extra fancy bits around the eyes. So quite often you'll see that my wing becomes a great big swirly thing, or I might do another swirly thing that comes underneath the eye as well. Or we could do dots. So we are going to come back and do some dots later. But first, let's sort out this big blob of color in the middle of our forehead. So with this, we're still using our trusty round brush with the pointy end. It's doing almost all the work for us. And one thing that Sister Alaska almost always has is a heart on the forehead. There are a lot of things on my face that I feel have meaning that I don't really tell people about. I always like to have a heart on my forehead, partly because it's for the love that I'm showing for my community, but also there's a little inside joke in my head about how I've always got a heart on.
Dirty.
We're going to paint our heart on.
I'm getting one right now, just talking about it.
For this, we are using our teardrop method 1. It's the same one that you were using before. So we're going to use 2 teardrop shapes to essentially make the heart. You've already got your head panties on, which is helpful. I don't. So I have to imagine how much of the color we're going to see and where my heart needs to sit. So I'm going to assume that I'm going to lose about half of that color on my forehead. So I need my heart to sit in the space below that, but I want to keep it on the color. So I'm going to give myself a guide, and I'm going to put the teeniest, tiniest dot where I think the bottom of my heart should be. Teeny tiny dot. This is where I'm going to put the point of my brush and press down. Now, center of the forehead is a tricky place to paint, I'm not going to lie. With my paintbrush, normally I hold it like a pen or a pencil. For the center of my forehead, I'm not. I've got my all 4 fingers on it and the thumb underneath, and I'm going to hold it so the point is pointed directly at me. I'm going to do the first teardrop, so I'm going to put the point on that dot, and then I'm going to press at a diagonal. Nice, press down, so I've got half of my heart.
Okay.
And then I do the same on the other side. It's never perfect the first time I do it. All we're doing really is giving ourselves a guideline, which we can then tidy up. I'm going to do the other half, so the point goes on that same dot again, but we're doing the diagonal to the other side. And what I'm left with is a wonky looking heart.
Yep, getting that.
Now that I've got the majority of this shape, I will freehand the rest of it. So I'll just take the very point of this pointy brush and start changing the shape just ever so slightly. You could try and freehand it totally, which I have tried doing before. It's hard. Or you could get a stencil and completely stencil the thing, which I have also tried. Not entirely successfully, but that's the method I've found easiest. And like everything, it's just practice. Now I'm at the point where I've watched so many of these tutorials where if I see a picture of face paint, I can more or less guess the steps that they've gone through to create what they have.
So you can just see behind the curtain of anyone's makeup now then.
This is strictly face paint. So if you're talking traditional makeup, I'm completely clueless. I maybe should have introduced this whole episode of the fact that I'm actually not a makeup person. I don't know a lot of makeup techniques. I don't use a lot of traditional makeup. I don't even own a single lipstick. Makeup's not really my thing. I was someone who had no makeup skills whatsoever. And still with traditional makeup, I don't know how to do it. This has all been learned myself from YouTube tutorials. So if I can do it, other people can do it. They can. This is where, if you wanted to, you could ignore step 3, which is the fancy bits. I like doing the extra details because I feel it finishes off a look. We've obviously not come to the nose and lips yet. They are essential. But I'm going to go on to a bit of step 3 before we come back to them. And for this, I'm just going to do it with dots. We're just going to add dots in different places to make things look a bit more finished and like there's been more detail put into it.
So is it the same brush that we've been using so far then?
It's the same brush, but we do need the technique of having lots of really wet paints. And then you want to make sure you pick up that pool of paint with the tip of your brush. So it's got a lot on it.
Okay.
And as I said before, the harder you press, the bigger your dot will be. So I'm going to start by adding some dots to the fake lashes. And I'm just going to put a single dot at the end of each one. I'm going to leave a bit of a gap. So we want to see a bit of white before the dot. And I'm going to do the biggest dot at the longest one and make them smaller as I come down underneath the eye. So we've got our big one, slightly smaller as we go. That is my dots.
Because my wings were so big, I'm like, I can't start at the top one, but I will start at the one that I can.
These are extra fancy bits and you can do whatever you want with them. So I've just decided that I want to add one to the end of my wing as well because my wing's shorter. So let's just do it. You could add more than one dot to the end if you wanted to. For World AIDS Day, I think I did 3 dots coming out of each one and I kind of like cascaded them down. You can do them whatever you like.
I'm definitely having an interesting experience relearning how to use my left hand as we've done one half of the face.
There we go. So that's what I've got so far. Suddenly you have detail and it looks like you've done something fancier than what you started with, but they're just dots, which we learned from Brother Bimbo a while back.
Oh, yeah.
Episodes. Dot your face.
Teardrops and dots. That's all I've done.
Then we've got this bit in the center of the forehead. I feel for me also looks unfinished. I would want something a bit more to kind of make it feel more coherent with everything else. Again, I'm just going to use dots and I'm going to go around the edge of that color with dots. Okay. Now, what size of dots you make is up to you. You can make them all the same size. You could start bigger down at the bottom and make them smaller as you go up on each side. It's entirely up to you.
Well, now I've also accidentally dotted the head panties. Woo!
Alternating small and big, because why not? Do I want to do any more? I came to today with a plan, but I'm still tempted to make things up on the fly. I could add a teardrop at the base of that heart.
Just remember, however much extra we want to do requires more editing time.
I want it. I'm doing it. There we go.
Very nice.
Now it looks like we've done something that required some effort. But it's all just dots and teardrops. So we are done with our black paint.
Oh, goodbye, black paint.
It can go.
Get out the door. We don't need you anymore.
We are going to bring back our favorite split cake.
Oh, no.
And for this one, we're going to step away from our favorite brush that we've been using all episodes.
What are we going to use instead?
We're going to take the skinny brush instead. So you still want it to be a round brush with a slightly pointed end. You want it to be as skinny as possible.
Skinny mini.
You can use a flat brush if you turn it on its edge and use the skinny side of it rather than the flat side. But I find it much easier with a round brush. And we are going to load it up with the dark color.
The dark of the night, evil will find her, find her.
You want to get a good coating on all the bristles, but don't want it to be too wet. So it shouldn't be dripping off.
Okay.
If you just brush like back and forth, you end up flattening the bristles out. We don't judge by size here. We like some things fat, but for this, we need it skinny.
Skinny, flat.
So we are going to use the skinny edge of those bristles. I'm going to use the other end of the brush just to show you. So I actually lay the brush flat on my nose and I drag it down until I get to the tip, and then I just kind of let it flick off at the end. So you'll end up with a gap at the end, which we'll come back to, but I use my nose as a guide rather than freehanding it. The top of it's probably level with the inner corner of my eyes. So if you've had a straight line across, the top of the brush is probably in line with that. I have half of mine done, and you can see I've just let it kind of flick off underneath my nose.
Swish and flick. Oh no, I flicked too much.
That's okay, we can make a part of the nose. Now we need to try and match it on the other side.
Are you swapping hands again?
Every time.
Come on, Babeushka, you can do this. Just think of Stalin. It'll all work out.
Freehanding is much harder, whereas if you just lie it on your face and let your face guide you, then there's only so far wrong you can go.
Depends how wrong Babeushka's face is.
Well, there's nothing we can do to fix that.
Like I've given myself a third hole.
I've not managed to match it up at the bottom yet, so I'm just going to join them together, and then we're going to fill in the end a little bit. Roughly join those lines. So now that I've joined the lines, I tend to fill in the end of the nose a little bit. I'll do one side so you can kind of see. So I've done this side, so I've made it a little bit thicker at the bottom and brought it diagonally across, and then I'll do the same at the other side. See, I told you we don't discriminate between skinny and fat here. So there is some fattened up nose contour. So it kind of mimics the shapes that people often draw on their face when they're doing drag contouring on their nose, but there's nothing blended out. We are making a very deliberate reference to that style of makeup, and I make it in your face. And by thickening up the end a little bit, there's a very slight reference to clown makeup, because we are sacred clowns. But finally, I also, inside my head, like to think of it as my little face penis.
And with your heart on.
It could be worse. Have you ever seen Lawrence Chaney's? At least mine is stylized. Depending on what time you've got, how you're feeling. There are other things that you could do. For example, you could add some contouring to the cheeks. Interestingly, the only time that I would use powders and traditional makeup. And for anyone curious, I use the card methods that many other sisters use. So placing the card where you want it to go, and then putting the powder on and kind of blending it up. But not today. Yeah, can fuck off with that today. Be honest. We're going to do some lips.
Ooh.
I can only talk about what I do for the lip shape that I have. So the bottom lip has got some volume to it. It's okay. Top lip, less so. Which means for me, I want to balance those two out and have them be roughly equal in size. Let's start with the bottom lip because that's the easier one.
Are we still using the itty bitty brush?
We're still using the itty bitty brush. So again, I'm taking the darkest color from our split cake. And at this point, I'm basically just lining my lips. So I'm just drawing the outline, nothing else.
Okay.
And for my bottom lip, I actually follow my natural lip. At the very most, I might put the line immediately outside my natural lip line. Next, we're going to do top lip. So this is where I have to get a bit more creative because I want my top lip to be bigger and to roughly match in volume to my bottom lip. So I'm going to use some dots again to guide me. If you think about your Cupid's bow in your lip, I'm going to put it in the very center at the lowest point of my Cupid's bow, which is about there. And then I'm going to put two other dots where I want the peaks of my lip to be on either side of that. Now, my Cupid's bow is not that big, so I'm going to go higher up and I'm going to go slightly out, but not too much. What I'm going to do, which I can't do standing up at the camera, I'm going to start at that dot in the middle. I'm going to go up to the dot above, and then I'm going to bring it down to meet the natural end of my lip. You can kind of see the difference between where it is and my natural lip which is much lower down.
Hmm.
How are you faster at my own makeup?
Just because I'm faster does not mean I'm better.
Oh, yes.
Oh,
Next, we're going to add on some corners. I like to call it painting on the smile. Again, it's a slight nod to the Sacred Clown. There's a very slight clownishness to the lips without being over the top. And I think it just makes it look a little bit more like it's smiling perpetually, even if I'm not. We're using a very similar technique to what we did with the wing of our eyeliner. We're going to take the bottom lip and imagine that we're following that line as if it was continued. And I don't make it too long.
Okay. Okay.
And I'm going to do the line on the other side to make sure they're kind of even before I go any further. Looks very weird just now.
Yes.
What I'm then going to do is I'm going to take the end of that line and I'm going to bring it in to the top lip, almost straight across, kind of like we did with our wing for our eyeliner.
Okay.
So it's quite subtle, but it just adds an extra little flick.
Oh, this is super annoying with facial hair.
I now have corners which are kind of even-ish. And from here, you're just filling in the lips. And this is where you can switch to a bigger brush as well. In fact, the flat brush can be quite nice for doing lips.
Oh, yeah.
And as you can see from the fact that I'm still using face paint, I really genuinely don't own any lipsticks.
They are the sheen queen, painting lips so green. Yeah, okay. I'm just going to stop.
You'll be pleased to hear that we are now done with face paint.
Dun, dun, dun.
So we just have a couple of bits left to do. These, I would say, are definitely category 3. These are non-essential. I just like to do them because I think it gives a more complete, finished look. So the most obvious one is lashes. We've painted on some fake lashes, but the upper lid is feeling neglected. It wants some lashes. And the other thing that I do, which again is optional, is I fill in my brows. I feel that eyebrows do define the face. They help give the final bit of structure to the stuff that we've done around the eyes. So I feel that it's an essential thing for me to do. I wouldn't go without doing my brows now. I tried, I think my very first manifest, or maybe the first 2, I didn't do my brows and I regretted it. So this is the very rare occasion, apart from doing cheek contour, where I would get some eyeshadows out, some actual makeup. So I'm going to reach for an eyeshadow palette. Eyeshadow of many different colors. I'm going to be very boring and go for dark gray. This one, I fill in my natural brows. It's literally all I do. Now, I do shape my natural brows and I shape them with my sister face in mind. So make if that's what you will. And I'm just going to use a flat eyeshadow brush. People do this. Does it make it work? Well, it does. Just use one of these and lightly put it onto my eyebrow. I have one brow done, so you can see the difference that it makes on my face personally. Of course, I think it's fair to say that eyebrows are always swisters. Did you know? Eyebrows are sisters. I think it's fair to say that eyebrows are pretty much always sisters and never twins. There we go. Brows are done. And I feel like I look more or less done at this point. The last thing is lashes. And I would say lashes, out of all of the stage 3 optional finishing bits and pieces, they are the least important. There have been manifests where I've done during COVID where I just didn't bother. Honestly, there's so much going on my face at this point that I'm probably the only one that cares. However, we are going to do lashes as part of this. And this is where I say once again, I'm not a makeup person and I suck at lashes. I am somehow incapable of properly using normal lashes and glue and yeah. So I cheat and I go with magnetic lashes. Magnetic lashes.
Da, 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 da.
I'm not recommending any brand in particular. This just happens to be the one that I have just now. The last one I ordered was just whatever was on offer. Obviously, we've already given ourselves eyeliner. So the magnetic stuff, we are painting over the top and just where you think you're going to put your lashes. I tend to start them at the lash line at the inner corner, and as I go out, I allow them to come up slightly. It's just me. You can do whatever you like. And you don't have to be too neat with painting this on because you've already got plenty of eyeliner there already.
Woo! Helps if my mirror isn't dirty. Jeez.
So dirty.
Can you see a bloody thing in it?
Can't really see what you're doing, but it looks dirty.
I was cleaning the mirror. So I'm just doing the line and then I'm leaving it to set.
Yeah, I'm just leaving it, painting the other eye.
Now we play the waiting game.
I'm going to be honest, I don't really wait long for it to dry.
Just jam them in now then, yeah.
The first eye should be mostly dry by now. No? I'll be patient, I'll wait a little bit. There are, of course, plenty of other things that you could do. Like, I've not even talked about glitter today, which is shocking. Right, how are we doing? Are we dry enough? Should we just go for it?
Yeah. In for a penny, in for a pound.
Oh, you're doing the fancy thing with the tweezers.
I don't trust myself not to poke my own eye.
I'm going to be honest, I'm so rubbish at lashes. I don't even know what to do with the tweezery things. So I just don't. I just use my fingers.
As you see, I have tried to go with the fancy applicator and then I switched to my hand because it was going a bit wrong.
Lash and without lash. It's not a huge difference, but I just feel it just adds a little something.
I have eyelashes on.
All right, should I put some head panties on?
Yes, let's see the Alaska's technique of not ruining any of this beautiful work.
So I put my hands up inside, behind the head, and I hook it behind the head as I bring them forward, far away from my face. And then I can just bring the back up.
I suppose we may as well finish off the look. This is the praying mantis nun in their natural habitat.
I definitely look like a space egg now.
Oh, you do!
Voila!
Ta-da, fuckers.
Gorgeous drag nuns.
Are you just saying that because we both look like Sister Alaska now?
That's the definition of gorgeous, isn't it? How are you feeling then about your final look?
It's very interesting. I think there's definitely skills to be practiced, but I think as you were talking through it, like obviously you've had a lot of time and experience practicing it, so I should not be too hard on myself.
I think you did great.
I suppose you're a good example of that rule that as long as you're willing to put in the time and effort to practice on things, you can see one-time attempt versus many times doing it.
It looks beautiful though. Really interesting to see someone else with an Alaska face. Because I don't think I see many sisters with makeup that looks like mine, actually. I always feel like a bit of an outlier. There's definitely a sister style, and I'm not it.
I mean, it's a very unique style, so you know the Alaska brand, as it were.
The face penis and the heart on.
That everyone now knows about how dirty you are.
It was an inner joke that I never thought I would tell anyone out loud.
Who wants to meet me in the alleyway now?
I mean, who could resist?
I know.
Do you think you learned things that were new that you've maybe not done before?
Learning the different techniques for doing sort of petals and drops, I think it's quite interesting. So yeah, I might steal some of these tips for going forward.
It's not me saying that my way's right. It's just what I do.
I think you've given enough details that people can steal little bits and pieces that work for them and they can adapt to their own face.
Yeah, hopefully people will find it interesting, if nothing else.
Since I've got to pay you back at some point.
We will be coming back to this and doing a Sister Babeushka face at some point, which will be this summer.
Whee!
So, Babeushka, what are we doing next episode?
We want to take some time explaining what the A in LGBTQIA plus actually is.
I have to say, I don't think they get talked about nearly enough. So this is a long overdue episode, is we want to give some representation to the A's in the LGBTQIA+. Look at our faces. We did the thing.
We have done the thing, right?
Let's look at your face one more time. You've definitely done the thing.
We've done the thing.
We did the thing.
We did the thing.
We did the
We
thing.
did the thing.
Did the thing.
We did the thing.
We did the
We did the
thing.
thing.
We did the thing.
Now it's the Sister Alaska and Sister Alaska show.
That's why I called you Sister Alaska earlier. I was confused.
The transformation has been completed.
Sister Alaska and Sister Babeushka bot.